Welcome back to the hottest marriage show in the world. It's I, John D. N,
Kanika.
aka
Do.
In Too Much Podcast, rescripting the culture one conversation at a time.
Yeah.
Good evening or good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are
Yes,
you?
that's what it is. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I've been looking forward to this opportunity to knock down another episode before we call it quits. But yeah, I was looking forward to it. I guess because it's not so many, so they mean more to me.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, they do. And I guess that's why I guess this episode today is a little more special because somebody actually requested our opinion on watching the video, and I was like, it was kind of cool to be one of the ones left to be able to like respond to like an outside perspective that had nothing to do with what we talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, with that being said, there was a video that showed a woman saying that she knows she was going to get backlash because African Americans make looking poor fun or something fashionable or something like a trend. Am I saying it correctly?
I guess in a way. So she was just saying, apparently we make it look desirable for others to want to be able to say they came out the mud, to say they struggled, to say they came from the hood. And I think we've talked about that before, where maybe not here, but we've talked before about how there are people who are maybe more fortunate, and then they go back and they want to talk about how they struggled, or they create this persona in front of other people like they had it really hard, and people who've had it really hard are like, why are you doing that? Like, we don't we don't want to struggle. So it's like a badge of honor for the people who didn't do it. They feel like that's something that is desirable to be able to say that you struggled. But the people who struggle are like, I would have liked that had it without struggle.
No, I don't think I got that from the video.
Oh, I did.
No, what
Should
I
we
got.
play this video real quick so I can remember it? You can you can clip, edit. I'm telling you,
And we are back.
there was a whole conversation being had around that clip. But there were many ideas, if you guys are familiar. So she starts off by saying Black people revolutionized poverty. Then she comes back and she says Black people made being in poverty look cool, to the point where people think that we like it. Like, we like being impoverished. We like the struggle. And even so, her co-host, or the person she was talking to, came through and said, what did he say?
He was
like, we're
Which
struggling.
came from trauma.
It's traumatizing.
Yeah.
But she comes back and says the problem is that we gonna make the best out of whatever we got. So it was a few conversations that went on with that. So the first one, where do you want to start?
I would prefer to start where we make it popular looking. I guess when I think of poor, I think of people doing things or spending money on their kids, knowing that they can't afford that, but they're giving their kids something that they didn't have. So to me, I feel like I don't know, like growing up, looking at how hard I tried to dress to not look poor. Like, really, like, and when I say that, I mean, you just don't want people to call you out, right? But as I got older, I realized that it was all about the name brands, and that got more and more expensive. And then it was like a whole bunch of credit cards. So I was just like, I was poor, financially poor, because I was willing to go in debt to make it seem like I lived a certain way. And I didn't even know that's what I was doing. I just thought that at some point I was going to become rich and knock out all this debt.
Well, when I was listening to her, what I got from it was it makes it look desirable to be able to say that you made it out of nothing. Like I always say, is $1 out of 15 cents. You try to make $1 out of 15 cents. It's like I remember when we were younger and people used to talk about, well, when we got older, people would talk about when they grew up, and they'd be like, you remember them government cheese sandwiches? They'd be like, yeah, that joke was so good. You remember eating syrup sandwiches? And I'm like, I don't know what you, like, I don't remember that stuff, but
You're hood adjacent.
I am hood adjacent, but I had a friend, not even a friend. I had a family of friends. They had 9 siblings total. And when people used to talk about eating syrup sandwiches and do this and do that, I did not do that growing up, but thinking about it, they did. I remember I'd go down to their house. They live in duplexes down the street. I'll go down to their house and I'm knocking on there. I'm like, all right, we're going to play. They'd be like, hold on, let me get a sandwich. And they would put syrup on bread. And I don't know if they used to do maybe butter with cinnamon or did they put cinnamon on the syrup? I don't know. But they would just do that and run out the door. Now, if I was doing a sandwich, I'm going to do peanut butter jelly or I'm going to do like turkey and cheese or whatever. But for them, they'd be like, hold on, let me just do the sandwich real quick. And then they would do something and then we run out the door and go play. Now, I remember them talking about that, but that wasn't something that I experienced myself. However, when we got older, I was exposed to a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. And when they used to talk about how they lived, it was like after they got out of it, it was like, oh, I remember that. That was so good. And this was good. Like spam. I haven't eaten spam. Well, I had spam just recently. I had it in some fried rice though. So I even experienced like everybody else. But when people talk about that, to me, it sounds like there were such great memories attached to that experience and all of them shared the experience. And I was like, I want to know what this government cheese tastes like or what I want to know what the experience is like, not necessarily in the sense of what she's talking about, but I mean, I think that Black people, maybe they did make it look cool. Maybe they made it look like it wasn't something to necessarily be ashamed of.
Yeah, I can dig that.
It's like we were still happy. There was a deficit here, there, or wherever, but we were still happy. And I think that in that way, Black people do make it look like that. And also like I remember I had a friend, she was my best friend, and she wanted to match in middle school. So we both wore sweatsuits. Like she usually just got sweatpants and sweatshirts or whatever. And you remember when we were younger, you just wear a shirt that hang out from underneath it and you got some matching shoes and you was really doing something. But anyway, so she used to want to match and I asked my mom to go get me a sweatsuit. So we had sweatsuits and we were matching and it was cool. When I got older, I had another friend, her family had a whole different background. When she wanted to match, we had Nike Air Maxes and Nautica like button ups. You know what I mean? The feel was different. But I love them daggone sweatsuits and some shoes. But it's like it was okay to not have they still found a way to wear something that wasn't expensive or we did and it was still cool. And then when they start airbrushing stuff, that was cool too. And it didn't really require all of the extra stuff that later on I figured out. Like when you're talking about people wearing expensive clothes, like I hung out with people who their parents weren't going to even try to flex and act like that was something that they could do. Even though I know that there are groups that do where the parent like pushes in order to be able to make sure that their kid doesn't have to feel. Like I think I even talked to somebody recently and were like, my kid is never going to know that they're poor. When they walk out the door, when they hang with their friends, they're never going to have to know that. I don't know. I do think that it is we as Black people, regardless of where we are in life, we definitely have ways of setting trends or ideas or whatever. So I understand. But I think that what she was trying to say is don't mistake making the best of what we have with saying we like it here. But we're not going to be mad. We may not like it here, but we're not going to sit here and cry about it. That's what I got from it. And while we were having a conversation, he was like, it's not all Black people. You're saying we, you didn't experience that. You're right. But what I was telling him was Black people, there are a lot of different parts of Black culture. There are a lot of different types of Black people who are contributing to the larger group of Black culture. And so when I say we, just know that I'm not saying me personally, I'm saying the people. So Black people who did experience poverty, I think that they had creative ways to either shield from you feeling like they're impoverished and you need to be like look down on them or feel bad for them. And there were other ones that was like, we gonna live how we live and we're just gonna enjoy ourselves. And we're gonna look like, I mean, we're gonna enjoy what we can. And I think that both are understandable. Both of them could be made to look cool. And I think when I used to listen to my friends talk about all their experiences, and I'm like, I don't remember that, but it's contagious laughing with them and listening to them talk about it. So I get the idea of what some may be saying that we may have liked it because you don't see nobody crying and whining about it. But I think the other part of that is making it look cool to the point where other people who didn't live that life spend their time talking about how they came up out the gutter and everybody who know how they grew up is like, no, you didn't. Like, why you say that?
Yeah, like that's That's the Canadian exchange student, Drake.
Yes, cosplaying Black culture is,
But I don't think
but
he originally intended on that. I think it just ended up kind of cycling that way.
yeah, because he came in and he was singing hooks and wasn't nobody mad. And he was rapping and everything was all, it's all well and good. I think that that was the thing that kind of pushed people over the edge. Nobody was mad about talking about getting girls or, nobody was mad about that. It was the transition into the gutter, living in a life of danger and all the other stuff that wasn't really your life in the beginning. Like the cosplaying of those types of parts of what you feel are Black culture. And it kind of messes stuff up because when they do that, they perpetuate the idea that that's all we're about because that's the most exciting thing to them.
Yeah, exactly. And I was about to say, the way that he did it, he tried to become the greatest rapper ever, and he didn't even know how to rap like about the culture correctly because he didn't participate in it. So I think that was one of the biggest things. So it was well before Kendrick had said anything because he came with that one song, first name, last name ever, first name greatest. I remember them saying something about it, but I didn't know. I didn't even think about the Canadian perspective. Like, there's no way he could have grown up hood if he's Jewish. Like, his Jewish roots are way deeper than his African American roots. And I think that was the largest problem with him being a vulture of the culture because he's not from it at all. Even if his parents came from it, it would be different. But his father didn't raise him that way because his mother raised him. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, even with Shannon Sharp being called drinking yak and smoking black and mouths. I mean, that wasn't even his style, and him being black was allowed him to put himself in a situation where he could benefit from the culture also.
I didn't say he don't even drink dark. It's the idea of acting it out. But on the flip side of saying poverty, Black people and poverty are not synonymous, or we don't like Eminem did a great job at that. Eminem did a great job of telling his experience as someone who lived a life that wasn't extremely where he had a lot of access to a lot of things, but he didn't make it about being happy about it, number one, liking it, or it being about being Black or trying to act Black or take from the Black culture just from doing those types of things. So I look at him, I often, because I'm from Michigan, but we are Michigan people. Eminem is always going to be in the conversation. And I think the things that went on with Drake and how we've experienced Eminem, it lets you know that it don't have to be like that.
It don't.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be about being poor and being Black. It don't have to be about being poor and it's fun. But I do think that a lot of the times, when I think about his raps and when he talks about growing up impoverished, he don't ever make nothing look like that was a good memory to have or excited about. But like, I remember when this happened and it was good. But Black people will, we will
Well,
do that though.
I think because we have several people that has experienced that and they can add to it to make it a little more funny. When the guy talked about the trauma part, like, we don't know it's traumatizing. We was like, you know what?
And
We
yeah.
made the best out of that situation, and somebody else had a similar situation. They don't deal with their trauma that way.
Also, you have exposure to a lot of different people in different regions. I'm more of a Midwestern girl, but do you find that Black people from where you've been tend to make fun of or light of or jokes about things that are traumatizing as a way
Absolutely. Oh,
of
yeah. I think mankind does it when other people do it.
mm.
It's like I don't know, like a way to get something off your chest when because you probably didn't think about it, and somebody else says something. So it's like, okay, I wasn't the only person to go through that.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of people as a way of protecting oneself. Not on it's like when you have trauma, finding a way to look at it in a funny way and be able to laugh about it, or like how you used to say when people were mean to you, you found a way to okay, well you about to be funny, we all about to be funny, we gonna
We
be
gonna be
hilarious, we all about to be hilarious,
real hilarious.
and it's like, okay, so if you're gonna talk about how I'm experiencing life, whether it's in poverty or not, then we all about to make fun about whatever traumatizes us or hurts us or scares us or makes us feel less than. I think that even in my family, it's funny. when I was talking to my therapist, she was like, I don't mean to laugh at you when you say some of the things you say, but you say it so funny. And I'm like, I know. And I have to laugh. But it's the only way that I talk about my experiences. When I talk about my experiences, I'll be like, dude, and it has to come out as a joke. And I think that also can make people feel like it's not as serious. It's not something that somebody should be as concerned about. Like, people shouldn't have to grow up impoverished. Not in this country. We shouldn't have to, even though we are. But we would definitely have fun talking about it one way or another rather than cry. I'd rather laugh than cry. And I think that, just like when the guy was saying, people are traumatized. Like, this isn't something you're supposed to aspire to. It was horrible. But when we turn it around and we find a way to laugh at it for our own peace, it can be a mixed message for other people too.
I don't know anybody who aspires to it. I think, like I said, that's where the presentation aspect come from. I don't know anybody who wants to be.
Maybe not aspires to be poor, but they enjoy cosplaying like they were, like when he was like, when people would rap about coming from the gutter and all this other stuff, and they haven't. Who was the football player recently that his son is a rapper, and he was like, this dude
Michael Irvin.
rapping about how he's struggling. You had a 20,000 square foot home you grew
He
up
said
in.
it was correction. It wasn't that big. It was like 15.
Do we see what we talking about though?
For sure.
Right. So, and that's what I mean by aspiring. Not that you say I want to grow up poor, but I want to be able to talk about stuff like that too, and I want to capitalize off of that
Yeah.
idea. I think and that's what I felt about Shannon Sharp when he was it felt so in, like, it wasn't even like somebody he knew growing up. It felt so fake. Like, it's different if you are acting like your uncle that you grew up with and he was always crazy. It's another thing when you're just taking a whole bunch of ideas and stereotypes that somebody said and slapping it on
Saying
you,
this
and
is
then
what
having.
black men named Unc do. Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah. So when I say, when he said that, it made me think not necessarily that they wanted or they wish they could have grown up like that, but it's a desirable way for them to want to or act like they experienced it, so that they maybe even have more clout or credibility. I mean, maybe that's, I don't know. But being black is not a costume you could put on. It's not an experience you can master, and then put off as your own. Like, that's real people's lives and experiences. I don't know, but I do agree with her in the end. I agree with her that black people can make poverty look cool because they're going to find some joy somewhere in it to be able to reflect on. And I think that's a protective factor. It's not glamorizing. So all of y'all raise your kids in poverty too. But it's saying it didn't break me. There was still joy somewhere. We made it out. I don't necessarily know why it's so exciting to play the part.
I think it's a
But
better story to tell.
yeah, that's true.
And if you if you start at a different playing field, that means you have to still perform at some point. He's like, but you started from here. Shouldn't you be further along?
I didn't get very far, so let me roll myself back. Make people think instead of level 7, I started at level 2. Yeah, and that's why I'm at level 8, and it looks great. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
And I don't think they even intentionally do that, but different black people, different groups of black people do make black look like the funnest thing. Like you want to be a part of that group.
They do. Look, I was laughing because they had talked about, number one, all of this stuff. It's like the United States is burning down, and we over here line dancing with big old fans snapping them, right? I was watching a video where it was a little girl. She had to have been 3 years old. My girl was on the stage. Like, I was like, but I saw that Louis Vuitton, they developed a fan purse. So now it's a purse that's about the size, and it's a fan. And it's like, no matter what we do, y'all gonna come through and be like, can we get a piece of that? Let me get a piece of that. But yeah, I can't lie and say we're not, because I love black people. I can't lie and say we're not magical. I can't lie and say we're not creative and magical and wonderful and resilient and hilarious and talented and everything else. I promise to goodness, whether we coming from the gutter or we had a silver spoon in our mouth, we do some amazing things.
You know, I want to stay on poor, but I'm going to
Oh,
shift it
poor. Okay.
to a couple of kids that are not black. So a kid was like, I am poor. I have to eat regular bread with my hot dogs. And the kid was like, you are not that poor. There's no way you have hot dogs without hot dog buns.
Would not say you were not that. You're not that poor. Don't play those games. That's poor. No, it ain't. Because everybody. Look.
But I mean, like,
yeah, no.
So I was like, wow, I guess like, well, I grew up, I never had hot dog buns unless I went to like a picnic. We've never had hot dog buns in my house. That was just be wasted bread. Like, there's like, okay, let's say if you got some I remember they were on sale and I bought some and we didn't have no hot dogs. My father was like, why'd you get get these? I was like, they was on sale.
He was like, I want some hot dogs.
But so that, yeah. And then I realized if you don't got a bunch of hot dogs, they do just sit around and it's just gonna mold. So it was like, just use regular bread.
You better stick some turkey and cheese in that thing and have a little baby sub.
Well, I mean, we just never bought the hot dog buns.
I hear you.
You know,
I hear you.
But the idea that a kid can say you weren't that poor to have, you got to use regular bread for hot dogs.
We used to have my mom used to make hamburgers. I couldn't stand these hamburgers. And now I figure out they're really good. Later on in life, I realized my mom used to make hamburgers and we would have it with regular bread. And that thing would make me so mad because Quality Dairy, we used to go to Quality Dairy, go get the bread. And it'd be like 4 loaves for $1.25 or something like that. Or 3 loaves for $1.25. And I'd be looking, and right next to it is some hamburger. And Birdie, she wasn't buying them hamburger buns. But we would have them at reunions. Sometimes we could have, but look, my mom be like, I'm about to fry up these hamburgers real quick. And I'd be like, it's no buns here. She'd be like, it's bread in there. And then
you know how privileged you are for you to say it ain't no buns in here. You like this kid with this hot dog bun thing.
Because, if you catch my mom on a good day, she'd be like, get the buns, blah, blah, blah. But, she would come home and she would decide, what am I going to make for these kids? I'm going to make some hamburgers. And I'd be like, but she is some bread in there. We use some bread in there.
I never looked at regular bread being bad for hamburgers.
I don't know. I feel like if they're hamburger buns, isn't that where the hamburgers?
But you gotta have it though. You gotta have it. But if you don't have it, it wasn't like, oh my God, that's
you ain't gonna die. I mean, you know what I used to do when we had the hot dogs, because we used to have hot dogs in the house. We wouldn't have no hot dog buns. That's fine. I take the bread, it's a square, and I'll turn it like it's a little diamond. So then the little hot dog can fit, and then I'll be tearing that thing up. That's not a problem. I'll boil some hot dogs in a minute, having on regular bread.
But you couldn't have it on hamburger.
You know the difference? Hamburgers were greasy, and hot dogs aren't. So the grease would be all in the bread and stuff. I just didn't want it. I wanted thicker bread for my hamburgers, sir. Didn't mean I had it. Like, I'll say this. I joke and I say I was hood adjacent. I lived in an environment where we didn't struggle, but also my mom wasn't going to just act like we had it. So you just made do with what you have, but I just didn't know that other people were making do with less. I just didn't know.
Way less.
Yes.
Way less.
But I didn't know. But the other thing is even when they were, I didn't think anything of it. Like, syrup sandwiches sound fun, but I never thought to have it.
They don't ever sound fun.
Oh, well, like it's sweet though. And the bread soak up the syrup. That's not good.
Girl, that's called I don't have anything else. And this is the last 2 things in the house that make sense.
Oh, okay. Well, did you like toast bread and then put the butter on it with the cinnamon?
If we had butter.
Okay.
Or cinnamon. You need to have like all of these ingredients to create.
Was it more likely that you had the syrup and the bread?
It was more likely we had butts left in the bread. But yeah, I don't think we ever had cinnamon. I think when we had cinnamon, I was like an adult. I was like, what are y'all doing with cinnamon? Like, they make all kind of stuff on it.
They make all kinds of stuff with cinnamon. You know what? But this just reiterates the fact that we have, like, every Black person has a different experience. Like, everybody has unique perspectives in the different things. We grew up in so many different parts of that continuum.
We do.
I prefer hamburger bun.
Yeah, no, that's called privilege. But it's cool. You know what? I don't want to shame you for being privileged because, like, I think I would prefer that too. I don't no, it's cool to like say you experience something with other people, but I think it would be better if it looked like it was on TV. Because on TV they didn't use regular bread ever. But I could only wait for a picnic or some kind of barbecue.
For somebody else to buy them buns.
Yeah, because we will not have it at our house.
I'll say the question is this. So if your parents, if you were going to a picnic or something, and your parents you said, oh, we have to bring the buns, they would buy the buns then. Mm-hmm. But at home,
but like, we didn't ever, I don't think we ever went to anybody's thing where we had to bring. Yeah, we didn't do, I can't remember. If it was, they probably brought like a bottle or something. With no bread.
Well, we used to have get-togethers at the park. We had about 5 to 7 cousin families that had all their kids were kind of similar age, and we would meet at the park. And it was guaranteed it was gonna be buns there. Well, nobody using no bread, but that didn't say nothing about once you got home.
There shouldn't be bread out there.
I know, but I'm saying, I mean, if bread is fine.
Yeah, no, but I don't know anybody. Because this is an occasion.
It's an occasion for buns.
It is. I tell you this, if you brought some bread, somebody's gonna like, where are the buns? But if you don't bring bread, ain't nobody gonna say, where's the bread?
That's true. No, if there's hot dogs. Well, yeah, nobody's gonna ask for bread specifically. You're right.
No.
All right. I'm fooling now. Sorry.
No problem. Anybody you want to give a shout out that was poor when growing up that you remember?
No, I actually no.
I want to give a shout out to not being poor anymore in all facets of life, because I used to be poor in so many different areas, not just financially, but just information. And now I have somebody I can bounce ideas off of that didn't grow up poor. So it's great to have a different perspective of having all of the nourishments growing up as a child. It's pretty dope.
Why he do like that?
See, that's what I'm saying. I'm shaming
all the nourishments.
Yeah, like I'm sure you like when I envision the idea of her sitting at a table. It has a glass of milk, a glass of juice, case with bacon, eggs, and then it'll be a bowl of cereal. And then they'll be like, I'm not having anything today, Mom.
No, I hate that show. I'm always something like, I'm not hungry. They grab a half a piece of toast and go out the door. That was not us. Bertie would have been like, sit down and eat this food. And you better not pour a whole cup of milk and a whole cup of juice. No, that ain't how none of that went.
No, that's funny though. But shout out to everybody who is trying to find a better way to not be poor, because being poor will make you creative.
That's always good though.
It is.
Great things come from this, having that necessity, that need for something.
Yeah.
I love y'all.
For sure. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA. Get after that action, or that action will get after you. Be great on purpose. Boom.